Okay, let's thank them again for 3 very interesting presentations. I thought it was very good. First, we had Keisha Ellis, and she connected the Burma Road riot identity. She connected the Burma Road riot identity, how the identity came about and the benefits that we derive from this identity. But she also connected it to how it has led us to isolating ourselves and feeling xenophobia, and has also led us to be politically impotent, not her words, mine, included, by saying that she was not sure if, even though some of the conditions were right, if our mindsets or if the climate was 100, maybe there'll be another time for that. And he was deputized by Wesley Campbell. He was a very good deputy, and he spoke mainly about the facts about what happened, and he began to take us on the journey of the impact of the cost of living and how it was said and how it impacted people. He also spoke of the Commissioner of Police and his role, and how when it was on Bay Street looting, he had one attitude, but then when it turned into looting in the bars, he had a whole different attitude, but remained on Bay Street nonetheless, right? And so that was a very good presentation. He also caused me to bear in mind the impact of alcohol on the protesters, which I don't drink, but I don't have such a negative view of that. I know alcohol has given you a lot of courage. And then finally, Mr. Aranha let us know that first of all, he thinks many of this was asking the wrong question. And he followed the lead of Reverend Stewart and went on an economic comparison, but he was able to compare what was happening in 1942 to the reality of today, and how even though we had the riot, even though we had a lot of political development, when we check the statistics for cost of living and what we're actually getting as minimum wage, the two just don't go together in terms of allowing someone to survive. He also spoke of the impact of that cost of living, and gave us a nice joke about a balanced diet for $3. That was 3 very good presentations. That was 3 very good presentations that I thought. But now that we've digested this and had a little reminder of what they all spoke of, the floor is going to be open for anyone who chooses to ask any questions of anyone. Just raise your hand.
I want to pose a challenge to the panel, but definitely to Aranha. The challenge being to bear in mind that when we go back to 1942, many of the men and women who were caught up in that vortex of change. Remember, we were in the middle of a war. Remember that the King of England, Edward, was just here over a year. I believe that if you check the record closely, it showed that the working people were distressed when Edward decided that he would leave Nassau for his annual vacation in Washington to Negroes. And the people that Aunt Vicky's great-great-grandson had abandoned them at the time when he came. They greeted him as if he was here to the work of emancipation. So I think that point number 1, if we look at it in its longer historical perspective, many people thought that the racialized, slave-based systems which persisted in our country, in our then colony, remember it's a colony, so it's not a question of national consciousness. There was no such thing. There was race consciousness. There was also, interestingly enough, class-based consciousness. Milo Butler made the point, if you check the record, that he represented the classes, whereas others represented, he represented the masses, others represented what he called the classes. And the classes would have been not just white people, it would have been the British, it would have been the elite running Bay Street, and it would have also been a bourgeois black class stratum of the Bahamians who were Cambridge educated, who did not, in quote unquote, mix the blacks or whites, but played a pivotal role in the society. They lived, as you know, Reverend Stewart, on the same ridge right there, from Fort Castle down to Meeting Street. You know that they did not mix with the people living there over the hill. Burma Road declared war, as the song has it, on the Conquista. I'm going to submit for your consideration that the riots of 1942 did lead directly to the PLP, did lead to the primacy of a politics which became pseudo-racialized, with the PLP purporting to be two different things, one at the same time, a party for all and a party of the black man. And they continue to this day to believe in that magic carpet ride where the rich, the poor, the in-between, everyone can have a space in that big tent. But the tent is big, but it's got holes throughout it. The fact is that the troubles of the working Bahamian, whether he is black or white, continues. And the promise is not the promise of 1942. The promise has to be the promise of 1958, and that is the general strike. That is the moment when the PLP decided that it would ride Randall Fox, the hero to labor, for all that it was worth. And when it was said and done, Randall Fox was abandoned in 1968. Once abandoned, Randall Fox, that is, our politics became what it is, a machinery for promising everything to everyone while not upsetting the status quo. Bay Street now runs, I submit and finally, all the way from Victoria Avenue down to where they own their port, down to Gladstone Road, across to Carmichael Road where they own their new Bay Street, up to Town Center Mall, and beyond that to Marathon. I suspect that it's all said and done, to the moon.
No, she was holding the microphone.
That's what I told. That's why I came up with. Sorry, I can take two mics. Y'all don't think Bahamians wild now? We all don't think this go slow is a cultural thing. I mean, I think whether the vast majority can articulate it or not, a whole bunch of people, they engage in resistance. It's an awkward, chaotic, random resistance. Young men launching into the road, challenging you, showing you. I mean, if you say you're a Christian, what you could do with this car? Cars launching into the road, past the stop sign, the red lights, people not going to work on time. I mean, you know, like that's a universal concept, on time. At some point, it's become a resistance. People understanding that they're not being compensated fairly, so they're not doing the full job. You know, they don't want to answer the phone politely. They don't have time for your customer service rep. You really don't have time for customers who want to talk about their service. You want to get mad and cuss at them, hang up the phone. I almost had to. Anyway, I mean, think about it. I have to think about it every day, right? The people around me are engaged in a passive-aggressive resistance. It's unarticulated. And the only thing I can say is it's up to some of us to help them articulate that, right? To provide structure to it. Because we could survive on $3 a day.
Well,
Food security, farming, backyard farming.
yeah, so
We have access
you're
to...
supplemented by hunting and gathering or
Well, I mean,
subsistence farming.
we have to shift our diet, right? We have to shift the culture. We have to get out of the food store culture. It's ridiculous to think that you could go into a store and they have 40,000 plus individual items, and you could get the exact item you want, whenever you want, within the expiry period, at the price you want. It's just ridiculous, right? If we planned, we became disciplined, we became organized, we could survive on $3 a day. We could do it. But the people who are in resistance, who are engaged in a revolution, they need some of us to help them organize it. It's already happening. Revolution has already started. It's up to us to make sure it's not a chaotic and violent revolution.